What's going on, everybody? In this video, I'm going to talk about sales for introverts. If you're an introvert, if you're more of a reserved person like I am, maybe you don't have that extroverted personality that you see on a lot of other YouTube channels where people are like super high energy, super pumped, and you don't feel like that's who you are as a person. You're more of an introvert. I'm going to show you how you can learn to sell and talk about your services and your products without having to be super high energy, super pitchy, and ramming your product and service down someone's throat. So we're going to talk about that in extremely detail in this video. So make sure you watch all the way to the end because I'm going to give you some golden nuggets that you can actually use right away. And if you are an entrepreneur, a coach, a consultant, you already have your services priced, but you want to charge higher, you want to make more revenue from your services, check out the full training I have in the description where I teach you step by step every way you can raise your prices and every excuse you have not to raise your prices, and I'm going to debunk that in that training. Check that out in the description. And if you are new to this channel, on this channel I teach entrepreneurs, coaches, consultants to finally get the courage to start their own business, to raise their prices and generate the revenue they want to generate from their business. Now, many of the clients that I work with, when I ask them, what is it about sales that makes you uncomfortable? One of the most common things they'll say is they feel uncomfortable talking about the pricing. Money is kind of an awkward topic. We don't like talking about how much we charge. We don't like asking for money. And just because of that, having these conversations almost feels terrifying. It feels like, I don't want to ask for money, even though I know I've got a good product. I'm not sure how to have these conversations. We feel awkward having these conversations. And if that's you, stick around. We're going to talk about more of that in a bit. Let's talk about some of the other reasons. Why is sales uncomfortable? The other thing is we feel like every time we pitch, we are almost forcing someone else to buy our product. We're trying to convince them. We're trying to negotiate. And when someone has an opinion and you are trying to convince them over to your side, that battle, that conflict that happens or sometimes tends to happen, trying to pull them onto your side, that's difficult for people. It's difficult conversations to have. So people feel uncomfortable because of the pricing. They feel uncomfortable because of the pitching element. Should my pitch include all these things to convince them? How do I convince them? How do I get them to pay me? Those are things that are very difficult. The other things for people are not knowing just how to talk about their value. So for example, maybe you're one of my clients and you have a guitar course, you have a public speaking course, whatever kind of coaching that you do, you're like, I really want people to pay me what I think it's worth. I've got a fantastic service, and when I'm working with my clients, it's usually $1,500 minimum and then upwards from there. So if you are charging, say, $1,500 for your guitar course or your public speaking course or whatever it might be, you might think it's worth it, but your clients might not. They might not see how it's worth spending that kind of money. So they don't know how to have these conversations. They don't know how to talk about price. They don't know how to talk about it without pitching, without feeling sleazy and uncomfortable. And especially if you're an introvert, you're more of a reserved person, you don't like asking people for things, this stuff can be pretty hard. And these are just three of the many reasons that I can give you. You can check out more of those reasons in the free training in the description. But if they're resonating with you, I'm going to talk about how you can actually overcome these things and feel comfortable with sales. If you've ever watched any sales training before, you've probably heard this. People buy from people they like and trust, right? You've probably heard that before, and it's natural. If you like someone, you trust someone, you're going to buy from them. Now, the thing is, when we look at this equation, we think, okay, in order for people to like and trust us, I must tell them about me, and I must tell them about my service, I must tell them about my product, right? Which is, what is that? That's pitching, talking about you and your products. So what ends up happening is we try to build likability and trust by talking about ourselves, by talking about our service, by talking about our product. In turn, we end up pitching. And by pitching, we actually don't build trust. We actually don't build likability. Think about it like this. Every time you get someone who's trying to sell you something and they're just talking about how great their product is, how good they are, how do you feel? There's a part of you that probably feels a little uncomfortable, feels a little bit like, okay, continue talking, I'll just wait for you to stop, right? So the easiest thing for us to do is, even though we want people to like us and trust us, talking about ourselves is not the way to do that. It's actually quite the opposite. And I would tell you, instead of talking about yourself and your service, go out of your way to not do that. Now you'd be like, if they don't know me or my service, how are they going to buy? Here's the thing. You are going to shift the conversation to your client. The conversation is going to focus more on them than it is on you. Now, here's the easy part. As introverts, we don't like talking as much. We like listening more. But good thing for you, that's exactly what we'll be doing. So, talk less and listen more. Okay, that is going to be how I want you to conduct your sales cycles, your sales calls. Talk less, listen more. Talk less, listen more. Why is that? Why do we want to do that? If you don't talk, how do we develop likability? How do we develop trust? If we're listening and they're just telling us all about our problems, when do we get to tell them about what we offer? When do we get to tell them about our products so we can sell them? Here's what I want you to see the difference, okay? When you are talking more about your product, it shows that you prioritize yourself and your services and your products, and then you prioritize the client's problems. In order to know the client's problems, in order to know the challenges they have, you need to be able to listen to them. A lot of salespeople think they do this, but they only listen up until a certain point when they've heard there's a need for something, and then they continue pitching. And I'll give you an example. Suppose you get on a call with someone, and maybe you're a career coach, and they say, hey, career coach, I'm looking for a resume. Now you know this person's looking for a resume, and you go all out. Yeah, I can offer you a resume, and I can do this for you, I can do that for you. I've done this with my clients, I've done that with my clients. And you just take that at face value, and you establish the need at a very, very shallow level, and you start selling them, you start pitching. Instead, if you take the time to ask them deeper questions like, why do you want a resume? Why is this important to you? Or why do you need to pay for this? Why can't you just have a resume made using one of the free templates online? Then you understand the root of the challenge, the root of the cause. Maybe it's not just a resume they need. Maybe they just don't have a strategy. Maybe they also need a cover letter. Maybe they need some interview practice. They don't know what they don't know, which is why they're coming to you. So when you listen to them and you ask smart questions to get them to think, that's how you will build trust, because they know you're not just trying to sell them something, you are genuinely trying to serve them and help them out. This is the difference. When you talk more, you don't really know what you can help your clients with, because you're assuming you know what their problem is. And we don't know unless we diagnose the problem. Think about it like a doctor. You walk into a doctor's office and you say, I have a headache. Are they going to say, okay, looks like you need surgery, let's go. I can offer surgery. We got surgery is available next week after that. They're not going to do that. They're going to take the time to ask you more questions and diagnose the problem. Are you having trouble breathing? Are you having enough water? Are you having enough of this medicine, that medicine? And then they'll diagnose the problem. And they'll do that by asking questions and listening more. This is the fundamental difference between being an all-out out there, my product is amazing, super salesy, pitchy, extroverted salesperson, and being effective as an introverted salesperson. Now, of course, extroverts can do this as well. I would recommend make it a point to talk less and listen more. This is going to be the fundamental thing that just changes the game when it comes to your sales call. So let's talk about it. How do we actually listen? How do we ask these smart questions? Okay, now that you've realized that you're supposed to be talking a lot less and listening a lot more, these are the three categories of questions you want to ask. You want to ask the what questions, the how questions. I would actually focus more on these than I would the why questions. We'll talk about that in just a bit. And you really dig deep into what they want and the motivation behind what your client wants. The reason we don't use why questions at the start is because sometimes why questions, if you're not doing it with the right tonality, it can come across as accusatory. So for example, if someone comes up to your resume, says, and hey, I want a resume, you can say, okay, what made you think that you need a resume? Or how did you come to that conclusion, right? They'll tell you, well, I'm having problems with my job and I don't know how to find a job, this, that. And then you can ask them more questions about like, well, is it just your resume or do you think there might be something else? What else could be a problem? And you get them to list those things down, because then the chances are maybe the resume isn't a problem, they have other problems. Or you can ask a question like, how did you come to the conclusion that your resume is a problem? Or how did you decide that you need to change your resume? How did you come up to that conclusion? Help them understand by asking them these smart questions, because they might never have thought about that, right? But if I say something like, why do you need a resume? Depending on the way you say those things, it could come across differently. So for example, if someone's like, I've been trying to find a job for the past year and I've been applying online every single day and it's not working. And if you say, well, why have you been applying every single day for a year? it can come across a little derogatory. It doesn't always, depends on your tone. So an easier way is just to use what and how questions to practice doing that. What made you decide to do this for an entire year? Or what kind of results did you see doing this thing over and over again? Or how did you decide that this is not working? Or how did you finally decide you needed something else to do? Ask these what and how questions over and over again and mess around with them. You'll find that every single time your client gives you a piece of information and you ask a what and how question, it'll go deeper and deeper into their problem, and they will start trusting you. They will start liking you because you're getting them to think. That is what giving value is. Giving value to someone is getting them to think about something they hadn't thought about before. You don't necessarily have to give them information. You only have to ask them enough questions for them to come up with a solution. So if someone says, hey, I want to, I don't know, get a diet plan. You're like, okay, why do you want a diet plan? Like, oh, because I want a six-pack. And you just give them a diet plan that might not solve their problem. But you say, okay, why do you think, or what makes you think you need a diet plan? Or how did you come to the conclusion you need a diet plan? Why do you think you need a diet plan? You ask these questions, they say, well, I want to get a six-pack, I want to get ripped, and I feel like I need a diet. And then you can say, okay, what else have you tried? Have you tried having a workout plan or workout regimen? And they might say, no, I don't have a workout plan. Now you know, maybe they don't just need the diet plan. They need a workout plan. They need something more holistic. This is the importance of listening more and asking smart questions to really, truly realize what does your client need so you can provide it down. A lot of people are like, I need to upsell my clients. You don't usually need to upsell your clients if you ask the right questions. If someone comes to me and says, Yasir, I want a job, I want a resume, I will ask them more what and how questions. Why do you want a resume? What makes you think you want a resume? How did you come to the conclusion you want a resume? Chances are, if they have a bigger problem, the resume is not going to solve their problem. They might get the resume from me and feel like they shouldn't have done it because that's not what they were looking for. Instead, I'd rather diagnose the problem, tell them, hey, these are all the issues you have. This is something I can help you out with. What is your budget? We can work accordingly. Help your clients realize what they really, really want. That is how you build trust with them. Now, the question is, when do you talk about your service? When do you talk about yourself and how you can help them? Think about it like, again, with the doctor's example. Once you have diagnosed them, once you know what the challenge is, when you are sitting with the doctor and they're asking you all these smart questions, what is the assumption? The assumption is the doctor's asking me these questions because they're familiar with my situation. They've probably talked to a lot of people who have something similar. And if they're asking so many smart questions, they probably have the solution. So you are building up your value, your trust with the client by asking them questions, okay? So the trust is built with questions instead of you talking. That is the fundamental difference, guys. We are going to focus on asking questions and building trust that way, okay? Now, suppose you have talked to your client about, hey, what is it you're looking for? Why are you looking for it? How did you come to that conclusion you're looking for it? What else have you tried? What else have you not tried? You've done all those things and you've talked about their challenges. When someone talks about all of their challenges, right? They've spoken to you for like half an hour or whatever it is, and they have basically told you every single thing about their problem. What are they hoping for next? They're hoping you can alleviate that pain and you can solve that pain for them. So you can say, well, we've talked about all your challenges here. Would you like to hear about how I might be able to help you out? That's it. And if they have told you all these things, they're not just looking to vent. They're looking for an outlet where they can find a solution. They're looking for you. That's why they're on the call with you. So once you have an idea of their challenges, and really take the time to do this, most people don't. They just get the first thing and they just dive deep into that. Hey, what are you looking for? I want a leadership one-on-one. Great, let's do it. It's $500 or $1,000. No why, no how did you come to that conclusion? What kind of coaching do you need? What will be most supportive to you? Those are questions you need to ask. Suppose you've done that. You've had all these conversations. You had a 30 to a 1 hour discussion going really in depth. The reason I do 30 minutes to an hour is because the kind of program I offer, it's very expensive, it's very high value. I want to make sure if I'm working with clients, I know what their problem is, I know I can solve their problem, and they feel like they can trust me, they like me, they know I'm trying to learn more about their situation by talking to them in greater detail, and only them enrolling them. So by doing this, by talking to them for like a 30 minutes to an hour, I end up building a lot more trust, okay? Most people are trying to rush through this process. I don't like doing it. It's the best recipe to get bad clients, bad relationships with your customers, because you didn't discuss things in finer detail. Okay, so you've got your questioning pattern. You're going to ask them about challenges. At the end, you'll just say, would you like to know, or many ways you can phrase this really. Would you like to know how I could help you out? Or would you like to know what working together would feel like? Or would you like to know how some of these challenges that you have addressed, we could overcome them? If they say yes, great. Then you tell them about what your service is, you tell them about how you can help them, and you tell them about someone you've helped in the past before, if you've already done this before. Now, this is the part where a lot of coaches will actually lose track of the conversation. This is what I mean. Now remember this, whoever is asking questions is the one in control of the conversation. As a salesperson, you want to be in control of the conversation. It's kind of like if the client is asking you questions where both of you are sitting in a car, you're in the driver's seat, but the client is reaching out from the passenger seat to steer the steering wheel. You can't really drive the car straight where you want to go doing that, right? So you need to be in control. This is what happens when I'm working with new clients. I consistently see this pattern in their sales where they'll do really well at building rapport. They'll do really well with the needs and challenges conversations. And then they'll talk about their program. But when they talk about their program, they go into complete pitch mode. This is where it's like a 2 to 3 or 2 to 10 minute straight pitch about their product, and they get back into the problem we had earlier where they're just going on and on and on and on. So even when you are talking about your program, you want to lace it with questions. So for example, if you were working with someone who they're looking for a fitness coach or something like that, and you can help them lose weight, you can help them lose 50 pounds or whatever it is their goal is, you can say something like, very briefly, give them an overview of what the program does for them at a transformational level, right? Too many people go into too much detail, which is where you lose your client, and that's why your pitch is so long. Think about it like this. If I was a travel agent, right? Or if I was some vacation planning person and you were paying me to plan your next vacation, am I going to tell you, okay, you know what's going to happen? I'm going to give you a ticket. You're going to drive to the airport. You're going to wait in the airport for 3 hours. You're going to get on a flight. The food's going to suck. It's going to be 6 hours of uncomfortable flight time. A baby's going to be crying there. You're going to land. You're going to try to figure out where the immigration is. You go there and you find a cab, and it's a new language in the new country, so you don't really know how to speak the language properly, so you might have a bit of an issue. You find a cab. You go to the hotel. You haggle with the hotel guy to give you a good price. And then you're going to stay there and blah, 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 blah. If I say all those things every step of the process, you're not going to be very enticed to go on the journey. But if I say, hey, I can help you go to Mexico for a week and have a fantastic time, now I'm giving you an overview level, and that's what you're really interested in. You're not really interested in all the daily day-to-day tasks. If I told you about those things, you're not going to want to do it. Same thing with the surgery. If I told you, hey, listen, in this surgery, we're actually going to lie you down, we're going to knock you out, we're going to open you up, we're going to pull out your organs and do all this stuff, you're going to be like, holy crap, I don't need it. But if I say we're going to go through the surgery and alleviate the pain you're having so you can feel better, now you want it. So that's why it's so important not to tell people about every single step of the process and the service, every single thing you're doing. Keep it very, very high level. And that way, your pitch will not be this long. Your pitch will not be 2 to 10 minutes long. Now, even then, when you talk about it in a way where you're engaging them. So say one of the things that I do with my clients is I help them go through a fitness program that helps them with their conditioning, their muscle, whatever it might be. It sounds like the kind of challenge you're having, right? And they'll say, yes, perfect. And you continue going along that, but you make sure you are engaging with your client. You're not just talking and talking and talking for 10 minutes straight, because then you don't know what they're interested in and what they're not interested in. So for example, if you have a conditioning element of your course, you have a muscle building element, and you have a weight loss element, your client might not be interested in all three. They might be interested in only one. So if you just ran through a 10-minute pitch and at the end you're like, what do you think? They'd be like, yeah, sounds okay. And they'll say that because they don't even know what question to ask, because you went through all of it so fast and you had so much detail in there. You never stopped to ask them what they think. And at the end, when you're like, what do you think you want to buy? They'll be like, well, I'll think about it. And the reason they say that is because they're not sure. They don't know what they don't know. They don't even know what question to ask. So when you're talking about your program, always talk about it in an overview way. Talk about it in a way that gives them the end result. I'm going to start here and I'm going to get here. You don't need to tell them about the nitty-gritty, okay? Another thing is, once my clients, when they're starting out, they go through these processes, they go through rapport, need challenges, they talk about their program, and they finally go for the close and they talk about the pricing. This is usually when they lose track of the conversation. What do I mean lose track of the conversation? I mean they're not the ones asking questions. So they'll build rapport again. They will do a great job of asking questions during the needs and challenges phase. Okay. Then eventually they will talk about the program, and then they'll talk about the price, right? And this is where the negotiation begins for most people. They talk about the price. So for example, when I'm working with my clients, the price tends to be anywhere between $2,000 and $5,000. And when they tell their clients, yes, my service is $2,000 to $5,000, now the client starts to give them, well, what does the program have? Or what does it consist of? They'll say, well, the program has A, B, C, D, Z. Okay, what about this thing? Does it have this many coaching calls? Yeah, it has this. Okay, how many sessions do we have? We have 4 sessions a month. And you can see how the tide shifts. Now, the client is the one asking all the questions, and you're on the defensive. You're almost retaliating. You're trying to defend all these things, all these objections they have, and now they're putting you in the center of attention and they're bombarding you with all these questions. What about this? What about that? What about this? So you get into a Q&A defensive mode, you lose control of the conversation, and usually at the end you get the, I'll think about it and I'll let you know. Okay, this is 90% of the time what happens with beginner salespeople when they're starting out, because the client is not convinced and they're not asking the real questions, right? So a lot of times they'll say, I want to think about it. And the reason they're saying is not because they actually want to think about it, is because you haven't given them enough reason to buy. You haven't given them enough reason to make this a no-brainer. And because the client themselves don't know why, they might feel uncomfortable saying it. Maybe they're like, well, I'm not sure if what he's going to teach me is going to work. I'm not sure if his program is going to work. I think this is too high for what they're offering. All these things are hard to say. They're hard to tell someone, hey, your price is too high. Or I can't afford this. I don't have money for this. Or I don't think your service is worth it. This is hard to say. So instead, what clients will say is they'll say, I want to think about it. What this does is it delays the decision. They don't have to tell you now. They can get off the call, they can get off the pressure, and they can slip you an email, or you'll find with a lot of people, they will outright just ghost you. They just won't reply to your messages anymore. They'll completely ignore you, and I've had this happen time and time again with my own clients, with people that I've been working with, their clients, and this tends to happen. It's because people are just difficult talking about the things that make them uncomfortable. So it's super important when you talk about the program, you talk about price, you remain in control of the conversation. You do not give up control when they ask you questions. Now, should you not reply to questions, reply to answers? You should. But every time you get a question from the client, turn it back around with them, okay? So for example, if someone says, do you give a guarantee with this? Most people will say, well, I don't usually give a guarantee because of A, B, C, D, E, F, G, blah, 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 blah. And they start defending, and they start going on a mini pitch. And again, it's very hard to sell someone from a defensive point of view. Instead, what I'll do is I'll give them a short answer and I'll try to uncover why they're asking. Because if someone's asking for a guarantee, like, does this work? Do you give me a refund? Do you give money back? There might be a reason why that question's coming up. They might not just be curious about the guarantee, but there might be something deeper. So instead of just giving them a direct answer, I'll say something like, usually I don't, but why do you ask? Do you give a refund? Do you give a guarantee? Usually I don't, but why do you ask? And then they will tell me, well, I want to make sure if I'm spending money that this thing will work and I'm not wasting my money. So now, because I asked that question, I know the customer's real problem, real objection was, is this going to work? The guarantee isn't a problem. The refund isn't a problem. They're just concerned whether it's going to work, which is why they're asking the refund and guarantee question. So if I didn't ask that question, if I didn't ask why they were asking that, I would never have known. So now that they've told me that, hey, now I don't want to invest money if this thing doesn't work. Okay, well, it sounds like you have some hesitations about the program. Is there something you're particularly concerned about? And then they'll tell you, yeah, you know what, Yasir, you talked about the program, you talked about the conditioning, the muscle and all that. I'm not sure on either the conditional bit. How much of it is strength-based, how much of it is diet-based, how much of it is conditioning-based. And then you can start to explain it to them, right? So you really need to uncover these things. The only way you'll do that, again, is by listening. You cannot just force someone to buy something unless you listen to what their challenges are, okay? This is why you want to talk less and you want to listen more. Now, I don't want to make this video way too long, but if you want to go way more in-depth about this, check out the training I have in the description. It talks about how you can raise your prices, how you can talk to your clients about your prices and generate more revenue. People have watched this training and right out of the training applied it and generated twice or 3 times the amount of revenue they were generating before. It's going to be the best 45 minutes to an hour and a half that you spend. Would that be a waste of your time? Probably not. So check that out. The other thing is the one-on-one consultation with me is open. If you'd like to get your business off the ground, you want to generate more revenue, learn to have these sales conversations, then apply for a call with me. Typically, I work with coaches, consultants, entrepreneurs who realize they need that extra bit of support to really generate more revenue. Okay, so if that's you, check that out in the description as well. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to support the channel by subscribing and liking the video. Let me know what you'd like to see next, and I'll make plenty more videos as well. Take care.